All right. So, Scott, we're going to talk about a Leonardo da Vinci painting about John the Baptist. Isn't that what's going on in this one?
That's right. So this comes from my book that I wrote about Leonardo's artwork called Secrets in Plain Sight, Leonardo da Vinci. And this painting is St. John the Baptist, and it's also known as Bacchus because of his loincloth that has a leopard skin print on it, or it is a leopard skin. I think that was added later.
Hmm.
And so it has this kind of dual Christian pagan reading, but that's
Hmm.
not what interests me here. What interests me is this geometric overlay that I put on it of the golden rectangle. And the red arrows indicate that it's anchored on the top, on the right, and on the bottom of the canvas. So we have a very strong lock on the geometry. And amazingly, the primary divisions of the golden rectangle, both horizontally and vertically, are where his finger is pointing to, his on his right hand. He's
Mm.
pointing it precisely at that intersection of those two lines there. And his other hand is pointing straight down. So the way that I read this is it's sort of like um, on earth as it is in heaven in the Christian mode,
Hmm.
or as above, so below in the Hermetic mode.
Hmm.
And I think part of the genius of Leonardo da Vinci was his recognition that the golden ratio was a mathematical representation of this concept, as above, so below. It has this spiraling forever quality where the same pattern above is replicated below.
Hmm.
And I think it was kind of very controversial of him in a way to do this, because he's saying, in a way, that we are connected with the heavens, with God, because
Hmm.
we're all part of the same spiral, if you will. I'm reading into it, but um,
Yeah.
you know, he's saying something that I don't know that the church would have appreciated. And
Mm.
this was very typical of his work. He always just slips in these profound humanistic messages that wouldn't have gone over in his time by the
Uh-huh.
authorities. But and I think this also is why we find it appealing and beautiful, because it uses the golden ratio in its composition. And if
Mm.
I were to take away that geometric overlay, you wouldn't see that. But part of your brain somehow knows it,
Because
and
you're made of that.
you just, I think that your brain is actually doing a lot of mathematical calculations all the time that we're just not aware of.
Mm.
And what we read from that is beauty.
Mm.
When our brain is lighting up with, like, oh, I see all these golden ratios, ding 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 ding, what you feel is just a sense of beauty.
Hmm. You bet.
Yeah. And so I find this one of the most profound pieces of art, because it's just literally showing us his whole philosophy there.
Mm. Mm.
And I believe he started with the geometry, with the science of it, and then he overlaid his art on top of that on his canvas.
Intentionally, you think this is explicit by
Yeah, and I
Leonardo?
wonder if they were to x-ray this, if they would see this golden rectangle like in charcoal or some, in crayon underneath the oil
Yeah.
paint, you know.
Your feeling is he did it with intent.
I don't think that you can get that kind of precision with that finger pointing exactly at that, at the intersection of those lines, unless you had drawn
Yeah.
it that way.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's too perfect in this case.
Hmm.
Reminds me of the credit card and how it's a golden rectangle to
Hmm.
98%, but
Hmm.
that's a tip off that it wasn't designed that way. It was more found by feeling, like whoever came up with
Yeah.
that proportion just sort of found the most pleasing rectangle,
Hmm.
but it wasn't like exact. And you see how on the left side of the painting,
Yeah.
the golden rectangle doesn't meet the edge precisely. There's a little gap there, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think he's leaving that kind of plausible deniability in there.
Yeah. 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 I
You
get
know,
it. I get it.
and maybe in the terms of a credit card, it's like that too. It's like it's not exactly a golden rectangle, is it? It's only 98%. So
Yeah.
there's a little gap in there where you can say, well, it's not a golden rectangle at all. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like you're reaching. Well, you know what? I really like this particular overlay because what it says to me is, and I totally understand the as above, so below. And you were explaining to me earlier how the finger that's pointing up, it does two things. One, it actually cuts the entire rectangle, if you like, that surrounds the entire figure of John the Baptist. It cuts that on the vertical axis at the golden ratio, right? And then it also cuts the horizontal line going across. So both vertically and horizontally, that finger just points to that golden point, you know, and whether you go up or you go across, it's like golden ratio, golden ratio. And so for me, it's like it's literally pointing out the golden ratio, you know, like literally. It's like so even though it's like encoded and all, when you look at that overlay, it's almost like, check this out, you know, like check this out. It's so important somehow for Leonardo, you
And there was
know.
a Nobel Prize winning physicist, I think Appleton, said the golden ratio is the key to universal physics. And so Leonardo is 500 years ahead of his time in that regard.
Yeah,
And this is
yeah,
often the case with great artists, is they come up with these ideas, they sort of channel them way before the scientists kind of manifest that and realize the truth of it, you know.
yeah. Similar for, like, you know, the ancient spiritual teachers, you know, they were tapped into all of this. And oftentimes it's like quantum physics then endorses what they've said 2,500 years ago, you know.
What it is, it's
So,
sort of like different aspects of the psyche kind of
mm,
encountering the same information and sort of verifying it. And we sort of trust the left brain more. I don't know why,
yeah,
but um,
yeah,
I think we ought to really pay more attention to these visionaries who get the information way earlier
way earlier.
than
Yeah,
the people that verify it
yeah.
do later. Yeah.
Beautiful, Scott. I love it. I love that one.
So please like, subscribe, and let us know what you think.